Okay. Hi, I'm Bethany Kesler. I kick around the internet as DJ Gray for my fiction writing, but I am a historian and folklorist and kind of all around history gal. So that's me in a nutshell.
That sounds awesome. And I'll go ahead and say, I know you through the DragonCon American Classic Sci-Fi Facebook group and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's the Monday of DragonCon. It's DragonCon week. And even though we're
Oh
not
yeah.
there, even though we're not there, we're still excited. We're as excited as ever. In fact, I don't even have to pack my suitcases. So how's that?
I know. I'm sitting here going, okay, so it's the Monday before DragonCon. I don't actually have to do what I normally do, which is double check the packing list, double check to make sure that we've got everything assembled, make sure everybody knows what time the caravan's leaving, make sure we've got the parking space reserved and all that jazz. But it feels weird that I don't have to do that. So it's kind of like, on the one hand, yeah, it's easier to do con when you don't have to leave your house. On the other hand, it's just like, well, crap. What what
What do I
what
do now?
preparations do I need to have? Like,
Make sure we have
oh,
internet.
yeah, make sure we have internet. My roommate was like, yeah, we should probably go do our con food shopping, and I'm like, oh yeah, that would probably be a great plan to do.
Because you
Since
won't
we're
want to
not,
leave.
yeah,
Exactly.
so I'm like, we're not going anywhere from like Thursday through Monday, so yeah, and con shopping for us always gets super fun because she has because she's got some food restrictions and I have food restrictions. So going to conventions is always fun. Trying to find safe food um, without having to bring literally every meal we eat. So, um, but yeah, no, yeah, we met through Sci-Fi Classics track, and because I do a lot of work there with Gary and Joe. Um, I got randomly pulled into like one thing because Gary and I had a conversation in the American sci-fi media track, and it was one of those conventions that you have, those conversations you have at conventions where like you just start talking and
Mm-hmm.
you don't necessarily really know who the other person is, but you just keep talking and talking and talking, and suddenly it's 3 in the morning and you're best friends. Um,
That's the way conventions
so
should go. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Forget
you're best
sleep.
friends. Um, so that's kind of how I got connected. And then when Gary realized that I was working with Mike Stackpole teaching writing workshops, because that's what I do, along with my roommate uh, writing for the which will help meeting for
Bethany, I'm gonna pause you. You're breaking up a lot. You're breaking up a lot. Um, let's see. Can you say something? Let me see if it's any better.
Okay. Hello, hello, hello.
You,
Testing.
that's a little bit better.
Are we back?
Yep, you're back. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I
I'll
guess
just
we do need
lean
to test the
further
internet, huh?
closer to.
I guess I was joking about make sure we have
Well, we're
internet.
also. I we are also having some storms. I just heard the thunder that you.
All right, go on. I'm sorry. Do you remember where you left off?
I was talking about meeting Gary
Yeah.
and how I got connected with doing panels.
Yeah.
So I was suddenly in the kind of in like the DragonCon system because I do writing workshops with my staff all during DragonCon.
Yeah.
And I been on a panel and Kellen Harkins with the American Sci-Fi media track had put me on a panel you know, are they overdone or are they underplayed, and kind of here's what we think about some shows. And so Gary and I just got talking after one of those, and then we realized the next year, oh hey, you're someone who I can like grab for panels and stuff. So he just started putting me on all of the things.
Cool.
And then I apologized to Joe, I think 3 panels in, because I've been winging it the entire time. I don't normally wing it. I normally over prepare, and he was like, if this is you winging it, I'm putting you on every panel week next year. So, and that's how I conscripted into the American Cyclics world. But yeah, we get to do a lot of fun stuff there. Like I said at the beginning, my background is in history and folklore, mostly because history came in last defense spectrum. My family is very old, and there are a lot of stories, and I needed to be able to connect stories with people and remember all of the various relations I had. So history was just kind of a self-defense mechanism. And then I kind of fell in love with it because, I mean, it is the biggest, longest run, trashiest soap opera that exists. Because you've got soap operas that aren't been as ridiculous as stuff that has actually happened. Mm-hmm. I mean, just the whole Napoleon thing. Like, you know, he comes from nowhere. Suddenly he's emperor, and then suddenly, you know, he has a bad stomach ache and is defeated. Goes to Corsica. So it's just like there's so much in history that is just absolutely patently ridiculous. That if you tried to put it in a novel or you tried to put it on a TV show, people would go, well, that's just not a thing that could ever happen. That's just too ridiculous. Well, they might have before 2016.
Nothing's ridiculous anymore. Everything's ridiculous. Nothing's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm gonna say. Yeah. The current situation has kind of blurred that line between reality and fiction a lot. So, but yeah, so it's mostly just started as a self-defense mechanism, and then kind of just got into it more and more. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of taken over my life in like best of ways. Yeah, history, both in history and writing, kind of hit me at the same time, to the point where I still think I am the only person who graduated out of my class who wasn't actually learning history because they wanted to teach history. Now, I'll tutor history all day long, but I really don't have a lot of patience for academic politics. And and when I say not a lot of patience, I mean none. I have no patience. So I was the only one who was not also pursuing an education degree. And so everyone kept asking me, well, why are you a history major? It's just like, you know, are you going to go into like Bishop King or what are you going to do with it? And I'm like, Honestly, I've structured my history degree and my classes in such a way that I'm getting all the initial research for this one novel series I have in my head done for technically a cheaper price than it would be if I tried to get all of the same information via conferences or interlibrary loans or stuff like that. So it worked out. Of course, that's not the answer that any of them were expecting. In fact, a couple of them like, so you're really writing? I'm like, yes, I am actually writing the book. I am or this series of books because my brain views things on a epic and a dynastic scale. So yeah, they're not all simple stories can be told in 400 pages. Um, so yeah, and yeah, it's essentially basically the basic gist behind it was it's the Crusades, but in space.
Ooh.
So yeah. I have never been one who likes the nice, neat little bits of history. I'm full there for all the nitty gritty shades of gray. You know, this happened, and you know who was right or wrong. Kind of depends on which side of the field you're standing on,
Mm-hmm.
and also kind of your background. Uh, so yeah, and my family is, like I said, it's very old and goes back quite a far ways, and everybody's a soldier before they turn to whatever their career was after they stopped being a soldier. So, and it's like literally everyone was like, I'm like, oh, you're an apothecary. You were a soldier and an apothecary. Oh, you were a soldier and a doctor. Okay, so you're a soldier and now you use our salesman. Okay, sure. Or you were a soldier and King of Scotland. Alright, so so yeah, so a lot of the military conflicts were interesting to me simply because I had family members on some of these conflicts. So it's and the one thing that every historian knows, but no historian will ever actually tell you, is that all historians write about themselves.
Oh.
all all historians write about themselves in some form or fashion. It all comes back to I'm researching this thing because of this event that happened to me at this point, and it encouraged my love of this. So for me, that was the preceding the Cold War, because we had a bunch of family we can trace all the way back, kind of, to the Crusades, and then I had family on in so many parts of the Cold War, from Vietnam to, you know, a couple of them who were donating money to help to help bring the wall down, to people in alphabet agencies that don't exist. So and so yeah, it's been fun, and that's the beauty of like the Crusades and the Court, is that there's not really. I mean, there's a bad guy and a good guy, but that also depends on where you're standing.
That's true.
So and it's really interesting for me to be able to poke at these conflicts and go, okay, from a kind of objective third party point of view, you know, let's look at what went into these events, what elements are here, and how I, as a writer, creative person, can make them serve the purpose that I want them to serve. So, because history is, like I said, it's one great giant soap opera. And some of the best fun you can have is to take an event in history and like change like one detail and then see how that changes everything else from there on. What if the Romans had ray guns?
I like
So, like, what if the Romans have ray guns? Have the power ray guns? I mean, you guys sit and go, how would that change this? Quite a bit. That would change quite a lot if the Roman Empire had the ability to have functional like lasers or functional ray guns. Another one of my favorite examples is the when you're doing like these kind of thought experiments or you're looking at history for different story ideas is what happens if the space race happens like a century earlier? Yeah, so you have like so instead of like the 1960s, it's like the 60s. Like what happens? Like what happens if we just did like twist this deal right here? How does that change everything else? And it's on kind of to work out from there, and then speculate, and just kind of from the different deals and stuff extrapolate out. Okay, so this is how this changes. But yeah, that's and it's like one of my current things that I've got one of my international studies with a focus in Asia policies and politics is what happens if the U.S. disappears, like just flat out disappears, like just the 48 contiguous states would have just disappeared off that.
Now,
and
okay. Does everyone's memory of us disappear, or do they remember that we were here and they're like, where'd they go?
Oh yeah, no, everybody's memory is fine. It's just that suddenly, we're here, now we're not.
Wow.
And it's just the 48 contiguous states. Alaska's still there.
And
Hawaii's still there.
Well, I imagine that. Well, yeah. Hawaii's probably like, all right, so where are tourists going to come from? We need to kind of do some outreach to Europe now. And Alaska's going to be like, meh. Alaska.
Well, and you get yeah, and you get some funding like and it also depends on how it disappears. Like, does it disappear? It's still there. You just can't get there, or does it just completely disappear off the map? And because I mean, if you get, if you have it disappear straight off the map, I mean, the game changes for Canada and Mexico because suddenly they have all this coastline, and they're now huge maritime empires because there are new routes to the rest of the new sea routes.
Well, now that's another question. Are we filled in with ocean? So we're filled in with ocean now?
Yeah, the ocean's still there. It's just the land that was there is no longer there, so it's all seawater.
Does that change the sea, the level of the sea level, because it fills in? So
it does have some effects on the sea level, and it does have which makes the whole climate change is a little more interesting.
Wow.
But you also have things like you've got more direct shipping routes, so you have to like roll the dice and go around the Horn of Africa, to avoid piracy.
Okay.
You've also got, but here's the other thing, is that all the military bases overseas are still there. Like the territories are still there. Puerto Rico's still there.
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got this idea of you've got all of this infrastructure and all of these different places that are still there. They just don't have the majority of what they used to have before. So, and I mean, you also think of, so you have Canada and Mexico, who become huge trading hubs. You also have we go back to kind of like some of the age of piracy a little bit, because one of the major roles that the U.S. has had over the last 30 years been guaranteeing freedom of navigation of the seas. So without the U.S. stepping in, filling the void, we get a lot more piracy, a lot more varying concepts of maritime sovereignty, or you've got like either the UN or the UK, Russia or China, or some combination of all of them stepping up to fill that void. So you've then got, and especially when you're thinking about China and stuff, is Russia's kind of not the same power they used to be. So if like we were revisiting the Cold War right now, our major issue would be China, would not be Russia. Right. So you would definitely have China making some pretty quick, decisive moves to consolidate their agendas and their revisionist agendas in East Asia. So you probably think of them immediately seizing like passage of like all military ships in the South China Sea, taking over Taiwan, Greater East Asia, sort of thing, and no one's there to stop them. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, apart from a really robust U.S. presence in East Asia, and so while the 7th Fleet may theoretically be there, the big backing up the 7th Fleet isn't. So, you still got to figure out, what happens to everybody who wasn't in the U.S. at that time. What happens to all people overseas? Right? What happens to, the infrastructure to pay all of these people has disappeared. So what happens?
Not to mention, the U.S., the bases, they employ a lot of people. They employ a lot of local nationals over there. Who's going to be paying all those local nationals?
Yep.
Because a lot of the commerce, the economy revolves around the American military bases over there. So you may have, towns that have completely lost their, source of income.
Yeah, I mean, and then you also go, okay, so Congress, the entire major government starts gone. So what steps up to fill that void? Does the admiral in charge of the fleet just was he in the U.S. at the time, or was he on the flagship? If he was on the flagship, well then he had control over 7th Fleet. Congratulations. Now he's got to decide, are they allied with their country? Are they gonna do, just strike out on their own? What's going to happen to the quote-unquote American diaspora? I mean, what happens with Guam and with Puerto Rico? I mean, do they become sovereign nations? Or do they band together in a kind of confederation? Same for military bases and any embassy land. Because technically, embassy land is on U.S. territory, but what happened? There's no U.S. Mm-hmm. And like we're used to knowing it. So, yeah. So does China take over? Does the UK take over? Does the UN just bring the entire American diaspora under its wing somehow and just... So there's a lot in there to play with, and there's a lot there where you can make stuff go wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, you've got, say it's old American example of a rich. Who's prosecuting him? What rights does he have? Mm-hmm. And, I mean, so we don't have the same world power that we used to have, so how does that even work? Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is the kind of fun thing that I do on my off time when I'm not doing analysis or doing my job stuff. Coming up with different things like this and going, hey, now this would be a compelling story.
Yeah. Now, is this something you've already
Um,
written? Are you thinking about writing this, or is this just a thought experiment?
this is me spitballing. Originally, it started out as me spitballing something for a novel series I'm working on, kind of trying to um, figure out, okay, from a more international perspective, since like a more recent international perspective, since most of my country are way back. I'm not really looking at current events so much as I've been looking at, as I'm really, really good with pretty much anything up to like 1980, anything after 1980, and I'm just like, eh?
That's okay.
Which sounds, I was gonna say, which sounds hilarious because that's the part that like legitimately been alive for. But there's some where I was like, yeah, I focus on the past, dudes. I'm like, there was a joke for a while in college that if it happened after 1500, there were certain people who you like, yeah, we can't tell you what happened. Like, we can tell you anything that happened before 1500. After 1500, not so much.
Well, funnily enough,
But
yeah.
as one of my one of my professors said, as I'm like, and this is why we require all of you to take history courses outside of your civic time period concentration.
Because you
So,
need to know, just as a
well, yeah, and I
citizen,
mean, exactly. I mean, and it's so you get so you get different interesting perspectives of stuff. Yeah, that's kind of why I was asking him, because I was like, oh, I know what would happen if I said this back in like 640. What would happen if I said it like last year?
mm-hmm.
And my friend was like, oh, so it would probably be this, this, and this. And he's like, okay, so I'm gonna go have a beer now
Mm-hmm.
because this is legitimately terrifying to contemplate. I'm like, ah, yes, you're welcome. Uh, so because for me, when it comes down to like uh, writing and like doing short stories and writing novels and novellas and stuff, I mean, I'm a very big world building person.
Yeah.
In case that's not obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also I believe that your setting should also be a character,
Yeah.
and the best characters are really well-rounded ones, where you get bits and pieces of information, but you also get the sense that this is a much, much wider world. So, a good portion of the book that I'm currently reading actually takes place inside the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
during this very interesting period. But I also know that at some point someone is going to show up with a pitchfork on my doorstep. Okay, what happened? Well, this happened in the rest of the world. Um, it will probably be my mother. It's always fun when your parents just take an interest in like creative things you're pursuing. Be great. You get that really awesome validation, but then if you write too slow, they threaten to show up on your porch with pitchforks
Not
and
good.
or super glue.
Ooh.
I have been threatened on more than occasion by a couple of my beta readers and my mother that they're just gonna super glue to my chair until I finish whichever story or whichever book I'm working on. So,
I would take that seriously.
oh, I do take it seriously, which is why I'm sitting here going, wait, why do you have a key to my house again?
Well, they may know how to
So,
pick you off.
oh yeah, no, and that is a limit thing. Like one of my the people that I poke for different things and stuff. He's just like, he's like, so you know I can pick locks, right? He's like, and you know I can triangulate things back from like this, and this. And I was like, actually, your job was in intelligence. He's like, so you know I can do this. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm working on it. You can't rush the creative process.
Exactly. You'll end up with not what you wanted. It takes time. The characters have to reveal themselves.
Yeah, I mean, or as I was like, guys, we've been working on a lot of stuff. It's coming, I promise. And so yeah, it's been. I mean, it's fun just to kind of sit there and look at what might happen if, say, someone was dumb enough to give a fairy queen a nuclear missile. You're like, huh. So, different things like that. Because yeah, that's one of the other cool parts is that because I am a military brat to the nth degree, and my parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents have all served in some form or fashion. I've got to see and do a lot of things that, like, normal, like, quote-unquote normal, I'm using scare quotes, people might not get to. So I've gotten a really fun declassified tour of NORAD, where they were very, 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 very serious about the do not touch the red button or you will be shot.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh, okay, I'm not going to touch the red button. But, so yeah, what happens if, like, Fairy Queen decides to just, like, take over NORAD? And like a couple of them said, I was like, what happens then? Like, how does the U.S. react to that? Well, badly. They react badly. But more specifically, how do we define badly? And how would the rest of the world react? And kind of what different factors would then come into play.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I like history and writing and folklore, I also grew up in the Wild West of fan fiction days during the late 90s and early 2000s. So I firmly believe in the art of the remix and we're going to use these details, and we're going to use this detail, and we're going to forget about those details.
Okay.
We're just going to put it all in Blender and see it comes out. So that's been, so yeah, that's kind of like a lot of what I've been working on recently, just looking at different building and seeing what's up for story stuff. Because it can always be more complicated. It can always be more ridiculous. And that makes it more fun.
Well, as long as you make it believable, I think it's your job, no matter how ridiculous it is, to make it believable.
Oh, yeah. It gets really funny because people are like, well, what about accuracy? And, in one of the workshops is all about research skills for non-history people.
Yeah.
Or research skills for creatives. How to research like history major if you're not if you're like doing stuff for painting or writing or film or whatever. And one of the first things that I'll tell them straight off the bat is historical accuracy. If you were talking about anything that's not in your own personal frame of reference, like you didn't live it, you want to forget about accuracy and you want to go for authenticity.
Yeah.
Because actual, honest to God, historical accuracy is pretty impossible unless you have a time machine. Mm-hmm. So, or you were like actually there.
Or someone recorded it in 1600, just like Bill and Ted. You know, they got an iPhone in there and recorded it. It happened.
Exactly. So So, but without access to stuff like that, I mean, accuracy, like even in like peer-reviewed journals for super serious historical papers and stuff, you drive for accuracy, but you know not really get it because you weren't there.
Right.
So a lot of what you do is you get like detective. You get to play, okay, so this thing and this thing, so we can kind of speculate or we can extrapolate from these point data, hey, this is what probably happened. But we don't know for certain because we don't have any records.
There's a phrase, I'm sure you've heard this, but the phrase says history is written by the winners. Have you heard that before?
History is written by the survivors. They're not always the winners.
Yep, that's a good way to put it. Yep. So we don't know what happened. You know?
Oh yeah. That's one thing. I'm like, forget accuracy. You want to shoot for authenticity and plausibility.
Good.
Like if it is plausible, then you have done your job.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I mean, it's completely possible that they had heat ray powers back in, back in the very, very early days with the Greeks and Romans. Mm-hmm. A polished brass mirror on the right sunny day pointed at ships, which at that point were wood and tar for the most part, both of which are highly flammable things. Mm-hmm. It's entirely possible that you could have a quote unquote heat ray or death ray. There's been speculation about that sort of thing happening in Battle of Syracuse. Granted, Mythbusters has tried a couple of times to debunk that myth. Mm-hmm. However, again, since we don't know the exact weather conditions that day, it's kind of hard to debunk that. We literally just don't have all the data for that to be something that they could actually debunk. Mm-hmm. You could try to replicate it with what we know of what stuff was made of at the time, but without knowing every single detail, no way to faithfully recreate that. And of course, that's when the difference between historical authenticity and the historical scientific method. Scientific method is all based on the calculating over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. You should get the same results unless you change different factors. And you can't do that with history. We've got the basis of people's writings. We've got the basis of different things that were published at the time, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to this we've been able to find from archaeology or anthropology or just studying different things. This is the best I've been able to come up with. So yeah. I mean, as long as you make it plausible, you've done your job. So.
I love it. I like
so,
it.
Yeah.
I think that's really creative. It's inventive. You don't think of being inventive when it comes to history because history is already done. But yeah. You are being very creative when it comes to history.
I'm also being intensely lazy because the great thing about writing fiction books is that you get to make everything up. Yeah. The hard part about writing fiction books is that you have to make everything up. So when you can just go, so when you can just go in and just say, I'm gonna borrow this framework right here from this time period, and I'm gonna borrow this thing over here from this time period. And I'm just gonna shuffle it together, and then put it in a magic-rich, world where, absolutely, you can still have sword fights with laser pistols. Totally, that's a thing. So super done. And then you connect the dots and try and make it a little more plausible. But Oh, it is both. It created competitive. It's also lazy. Uh, work work smart, not harder. Uh, as I keep hearing in my corporate life. So definitely kind of try to apply that principle there. So.
That makes sense. You want to make sure you're
Oh,
useful with your
gosh,
time.
I mean,
Huh?
yeah, I mean, and it's pretty. It's kind of like so it's one of the joys for fanfiction is you can go in and you can explore all the little things that you really want to explore because you don't have to build the entire world crash. You say, "Hi, I'm going to write, the Star Wars fanfiction. Only I'm going to put it in modern day bakery." Like you know the characters, the ships instead. The Millennium Falcon is a game store, and BB-8 is the weird appliance on the shelf, whatever. So you've already got the characters established. You already kind of know the world, so you just get to change the setting and figure out what works and what doesn't. So.
I like it. That sounds very interesting.
But yeah, and I know there'll be at least a couple of workshops that will go up. That'll be like recorded. That'll be live streamed and recorded, and put on my YouTube channel that I'll be doing this weekend. Because it's not DragonCon if I'm not doing workshops. So, and then I know there are some of my Patreon people will. There's going to be a couple more in-depth workshops that will be due this weekend, but it's a really fun time. In between all the other different panels I'm doing.
Well, that's a good question. Without the DragonCon app, how are you keeping track of everything?
Oh gosh, I have everything in my calendar.
Okay.
And of course, it's really fun too because I'm actually in a different time zone than Atlanta is. So I have to sit there and go, okay, so if it's this time for them, it means this time for me, which means I need this, and this. So that's so it gets a little more challenging, but at the same time, my panel schedule is the lightest it's ever been.
Good. Okay.
So
a lot of stuff was pre-recorded. That's probably why.
Yeah, and I've done a couple of the pre-record panels as well. So, but no, between me and other sci-fi regular kids, like to joke all the time that our panel schedules are often ridiculous. I think her top number was like 21 panels, and mine was like 19 panels. So there are a lot of them at this point. You get to the point where you're just, all right, no, Lord, no, I'm coming or going. I'm going to say look pretty and answer. It'll be, I have each, I think I'll live in like 6-7 pails, something like that.
Now, when
I haven't
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I have like done 6-7 pails since I first started, being on panels, which was a while ago.
Now, when DragonCon is physically in session, do you have a hard time getting from, like, say, the Marriott where the classic track is to where the writing is? Is the writing in the Westin? I forget. Is the writing in the Westin?
No, it's in the Hyatt. So luckily, stackable stuff is all connected. Yeah, I also it's me because every year I have to buy new sneakers,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of hide to where I buy them like about a month out from DragonCon because I have much usefulness out of them there because then it's normal wear and tear. But I've done the whole. I just did a panel at Samaya, and now I have a good panel at Sheraton, and there's 15 panels, and there are 80,000 people in a 2-mile radius.
I know your pain. Do you use the
So,
I was just gonna say, do you use the habit trail that runs? Huh? I hate that we have this, like, we have a lag. I hate that. I was just gonna ask, when I'm going to the Sheraton, I use that long habit trail that goes from Peachtree Center to that parking deck. Do you use that?
I use that on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
I have also used the hipster tubes that run between the 3 hotels, or the 4 hotels. On occasion, I have also known to load the hipster tubes and go, nope, I'm going to run outside. It will be faster.
I do that. Sometimes I do that, except for the hills. I hate the hills. Like that hill around the Hyatt.
Oh yeah,
I think I died on that hill.
Yeah, at some point, I know where I will die, and it will probably be walking that hill. Because that hill is just really, really terrible.
You crawl up. You don't walk up that hill. You're actually like Spider Woman going like this on that hill. That's how steep it is. I hate that thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculously steep, and when you have like mobility issues, it gets even more fun. So, because imagine trying to go up that hill with crutches,
so sorry,
and not kill yourself or fall into traffic.
I hope people help you. Do people help you?
Oh yeah.
Good.
Oh yeah, I've had a couple good ones. Of course, I think my favorite story is being in the Marriott, but not being on the class track floor, but being like floors up, and being go from like actually one ballroom to another ballroom, and like in like 10-15 minutes, and sitting there going, there's like 50,000 people on this floor. And I had my kids with me, so I took out a $20 bill. Now, and I am a very person. I am 5'3" in sneakers. I get an extra inch by sneakers.
Wow.
So I took out a $20 bill and kind of held it up in the air and yelled "Hodor" as loud as I could.
Wow. That's a first. I've never heard that. Mm-hmm.
Well, the funny thing is, I was sitting here kind of banking on the fact that we're all like ridiculous enough nerds that someone would come, some would try and figure out. And sure enough, I had guys kind of come over and kind of be like, "So what's going on?" I'm like, cool. So I have bad ankles and a bad knee, and need to literally from this point over here across this area to that far side over there, like next 15 minutes, and that's not going to happen if I do this myself. So yeah, one of them crashes and my back, and the one just grabbed me and like a potato sack, which was perfectly fine. I was not judging. I just needed to be on the other side as fast as possible. And, got me over there, they got I think actually it was like $40 just because I was just like ridiculously moved. They actually carried me all the way up into the room so I didn't have to navigate, try and go between all of the people.
Let me ask you. So, have you ever said that at Shenanigans, or are you going to say that at Shenanigans Thursday? Because I think that's a great story for Shenanigans.
Oh yeah, that'll definitely come up in Shenanigans. Probably with a couple of other things, like how we figured out that the thinking contact holdings can actually be read if you are sufficiently motivated. So, but yeah, no. I left $3 in the Todor at the top of my lungs in order to get one to help me across the Marriott.
You know, I finally learned after all this time, I've learned I don't want to be in the middle of the Marriott. If I need to be in one of the rooms, then I need to get up the stairs and get to the room. But I do not want to ever be in the middle. I'm sorry to all the people who have their booths in the middle. Life sucks. Move on. But I don't ever want to be in the middle of the Marriott. I will go around. I have been stuck in the middle of the Marriott so much. I remember one time I spent half an hour just in that little section where the two habit trails meet in the Marriott. And I got stuck in that section for half an hour. And I have panic attacks. And that being stuck somewhere in a crowd full of people in the dark for half an hour doesn't bode well for panic attacks. Well, I guess it bodes well if you have panic attacks. Yeah. I've had so many meltdowns at Dragon.
Yeah, and it's... Oh, yeah. My joke is that at this point, I've bounced around between so many different tracks that, you know, there's a couple of tracks that I can just, like, pause for, like, 5 minutes, and we'll be like, here's your protein bar. Here's your drink. Please sit down for 5 seconds together. And I'm like, okay, thanks, guys. Cool. Sorry. No, my cat just decided to join us. So he's just leaned over the gate.
Okay.
Thanks. So yeah, probably because it's food time for him.
Well, I tell you what, we'll go ahead and stop this. I think hey, kitty! Oh, I love black cats. My first cat was a black cat. What's your cat's name?
We have this one is Binks, Dirty Binks from Hocus. We have another one who is smaller than him, who's his brother, whose name is Lawrence, after John Lawrence from Hamilton. We have a black and white tuxedo, who is named Ariel, and then we have world grumpiest orange ball of hatred named Jojo.
Wonderful.
I have never met a more antisocial cat in my life.
That's saying a lot, because they're all kind of antisocial. Wow. And before we go ahead and tell me, like, do you have a website? Well, where can people find you who's watching this video?
I have a website. It's dj.com, djgray.com, and my blog's there, and my links to Patreon and different social media are there too. You can also find me around Classics Track, just hanging out under my charming muggle name, Bethany Kesler. So yeah, I'm around. Always happy to interact with people.
Awesome. Thank you, Bethany. Well, I'll let you know when this is posted, and I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.